Hi, it's Kelly here from Mayrocky Patterns, and today I'm going to show you how to hack this cool thumb hole sleeve and this color blocked front from our Hope pattern that is available free on our website. For this hack, I used the Hope pattern available free on MayrockyPatterns.com. First, trace the sleeve in the size needed and add 5 inches at the hem. Next, to make the sleeve narrow enough for a thumb hole, fold the sleeve in half so that the sides meet. Place your hand at the fold and mark out the widest part of your hand. Add a seam allowance and 1/4 inch ease if desired. Blend the side up to the elbow and cut off this section. Open up the sleeve, and on the front side of the sleeve, to make the thumb hole cuff, measure over 2.5 inches and make a mark. Make a mark where the hem line is for the long sleeves. Just above that line, make a mark and blend the two together in a gentle curve. And cut that section out. That piece we'll use to make the pattern piece for the actual thumb hole portion. To make the thumb hole pattern piece, add 1 inch to the curved side of the piece that you just cut out. And that is your pattern piece. Okay, now I have the pattern piece in place like it would be finished, and I want to go up 2.5 inches and mark here and here, and then I'm going to go up 2 and a little piece, maybe 2 3/8 here, and mark it here. We're going to, well, you'll see. We have to, that's our opening for our thumb. Okay. I have my 2 sleeves cut, mirror images, and I have my 2 thumb hole pieces cut, mirror images. Now we want to transfer the markings onto our fabric. I'm using a permanent marker. I do not recommend this, but I want you to be able to see it. I'm going to mark in my hem allowance so that it won't show on the front side. But we want to mark these marks onto our pattern pieces so that we know where to sew. And you're going to do that to both pieces, and then you're going to go to the ironing board and iron this edge and this edge 1/2 inch. I have ironed 1/2 inch on both pieces, well, all 4 pieces, and I've placed pins in the sleeve where the marks are. You don't need them so much here for now, but you need them here. And then I just clipped to hold this down. And we're going to go to the sewing machine and finish this off. Okay, so I'm at the sewing machine. We want to hem this edge on both pieces. And we want to hem the whole thing. So go ahead and sew the whole thing on the two insert pieces. Now, for the sleeve, we are going to sew only between the two pins, the marks that we made at the very beginning. Just sew between those. Now we have our piece ironed, and we have this stitched between the pins. I'm going to place this insert piece under the edge. We should just barely cover the stitching. Okay, pin. Now we're going to take our pins and pin at that where we had it marked the first time, because we don't want to stitch back over that. Now we're going to sew from here to here and here to here, and it's going to leave our opening here for our thumb. Now, you have your thumb hole. Finish your sleeve as you normally would. Then we'll come back and hem the sleeve and try out our thumb hole. And there you have it, your thumb hole sleeve. So trace out the hope pattern, and then take the point off so that you have the curved front. I used the back piece and placed it on top of the front and cut the hemline to be the same shape. I didn't show that here, but that is what I did. I have this great shirt that I want to upcycle, but it's going to cut into the image, and we don't want that. So we're gonna color block it. We're gonna make this fit. I'm gonna start by folding this down. We're gonna cut it into the arm side. My shirt is not wide enough, so I'm also going to color block the sides. So I'm just gonna fold my pattern where I want to color block it. Need to make sure that I've got seam allowance on both sides and at the top. We need to cut this apart so that we can fold it properly. We really just need to cut the shoulders, and I'll do that and we'll come right back. Okay, I've cut the shoulders, and then I've folded it in half so that the fold is this at the center front, and I've made sure I've gotten all of the wrinkles out. The seams are lined up, and now I'm going to place the fold of my front pattern piece where I'm going to be sure to have enough seam allowance. Now we're not cutting anything yet, we're just placing so that we can see how it'll look and how much blocking that we're going to need. So I'm not going to mark on the pattern, on the fabric. I need to come over here, come away from the seam enough to have seam allowance. And let's see, here I need to make sure that I'm away from that seam allowance. And then the hem down here. I don't want to just fold this and have a straight line down the side. I don't think that's very flattering. So we're going to curve this. We're going to curve it in and give us a little bit of an hourglass look to the shape of the pattern. So let's move this out of the way and work on that. Okay, I want to mark a line where the fold is at the top. Then we have our lines here where the seams are. So we're going to go with this line right here and this line right here. The next bit is to turn these pieces into pattern pieces. We can't just cut them apart and then sew them back together. Now, we're going to trace these 3 pieces out onto different pattern paper. Okay, I have traced my pieces, but I have not cut them out. Except for this piece, I cut all around except for the bottom where I need to add the seam allowance. I missed tracing right there. Okay, so I need to add 3/8 inch seam allowance. You can add whatever seam allowance you prefer. I prefer 3/8 inch, so I'm going to add that. I love this little gauge, so I'm gonna put it at 3/8 inch. Right here, I'm just using the gauge to mark the seam allowance on all of the edges that we cut. So I added a 3/8 inch seam allowance and made notches for the pieces to match up. Where I circled the line, I made a notch on each side so that the pieces I would know where they lined up. Our t-shirt. This is the top. This is the center front. So I need to flip it over. And I just barely am going to make it. but barely is good enough. So I need to change my blade. I'm going to cut my notch off right there. And I'll come back and make a little nip with scissors. So make just a little snip right there in the seam allowance so that I know where the notch is. This is not easy to do upside down. Okay. Pin this together. Okay, so we are going to put together our color blocked shirt. And I'm going to start with the top. I'm going to put them right sides together, matching our little notches. Now we're going to sew or serge. You can do this on a sewing machine. You don't have to have a serger. Just make sure you use a stretch stitch and the correct seam allowance. Now I'm going to go and press this seam. I have ironed and top stitched the top seam, and now I'm going to show you how to attach the sides. Oops, sorry, that's my step stool for the vertically challenged. Okay, first we're going to match that notch that we made, because we're going to ease this curve in. You've got opposite curves going here. So I'm going to start at that notch. I'm going to attach the ends. So I'll go and press these and top stitch. Okay, so I have both sides done and have them, well, I had them pressed and top stitched. And then my kid came and talked to me for half an hour and I got it all wrinkled again. So now we're gonna pin the back to the front at the shoulders. Make sure that I have the right side of my fabric. Right sides together. And I also want to add my elastic, my clear elastic at the shoulder seams. And I move it over just a little so that it doesn't get cut when I cut off that 1/8 of an inch. I don't want to stretch it. So just pin that on. I've seen some people have a neat little foot for their serger where they can put this through there. I don't have one of those. Squeaky scissors. All right. Now I'm going to sew down the side seams. The instructions in the Hope tell you to sew the sleeve in with it flat, and you can do that. Hope is one of the first patterns that I did. It doesn't really have any notches or markings. It's probably the first pattern that I did that the sleeve wasn't on the fold. But my newer patterns all sew the sleeve set in. And as you can see, I was about to sew that without pinning because that's how I do. But for the sake of the video, I will clip, not pin. From the armpit to the hem, we're gonna sew this. Now we can set our sleeves in. Okay. I'm gonna leave the shirt inside out. We have the sleeves that we've already done. And our notch to mark the top, and notch to mark the front. So this sleeve is going to go here, front. And this sleeve will go on this side. First, we're going to quarter our sleeve. So I use the seams as the top and the bottom, and they're not perfect, but our sleeve is lined up for that. So we're gonna mark the sides, the center front and center back. We have the top and the armpit pinned. And now I'm going to do the same to my sleeve. So let's pin this in place. Armpit seams together. Just have to do the neckband and hem it. Okay, I have my neckband cut, cut according to the chart and the pattern. Hope is available on our site for free. The measurements are given for rib knit, so if your fabric isn't quite as stretchy, you might need to add 1/4 inch to 1/2 inch to that measurement. Okay, so I am using a rib knit, and so it looks the same on both sides, so it doesn't really matter. I'm gonna serge the short ends. Then fold it in half and give it a good press. I have my neckband all pressed, and now we are going to quarter the band and the neckline. have steam pressed the neckband, and I have finished off the hem, and now our shirt is ready to wear. So I've traced out my Hope pattern that is available free on our site, and I have flipped it and traced just the bottom edge on the other side. I put my grain line and stretch markings. Mark this as center front. I'm going to extend the line from the shoulder all the way to the hem on the other side. If it doesn't quite meet, I'm just going to make it meet. Now, I want to take this line and raise it up to, I don't know, just about maybe a little below the midway point. So maybe 2/3 of the way down the center front. I didn't measure this. It doesn't have to be exact. Now you can use the whole thing if you want. I didn't want mine quite so long because I'm very short. So this will be the front of our cardigan. We'll cut out 2 of these, mirror image, and I have chosen this beautiful Hachi sweater knit. I just think that is so pretty, and I can't wait to wear that softness. So I cut my sleeve at the 3/4 sleeve mark for a hem band, and I measured my sleeve. The width across at that point was 12 inches, and the length left on the sleeve to add a band was 5 inches. So I want I want the top of my sleeve, sorry, wrong side. That's going to be my fold line. I want the top of my sleeve, I want 5 inches up plus seam allowance. Then the width of the top is going to be the 12 inches multiplied by 0.85, which in my case is 10 and 1/4 inches. I'm going to put that on 5 and 3/8. My seam allowance is 3/8, and I think I just put that in. There we go. 5 and 3/8. And I want 10 and 1/4. Now, my wrist is about 6.5 inches. I don't want the cuff super tight, so I want it to be about 7 inches around my wrist. So down here, this is going to be my fold line. I want to be 7 inches, but I want it centered. So let me find my center mark. 10 1/4 would be 5 1/8. Center. And I want 7 inches centered. That's 3 1/2. Oops. And I'm going to put a line on each side. And then I'm going to angle these up. So my sleeve cuffs are going to be not the typical sleeve cuff. You can do this with any sleeve. And then you will cut it on the fold, just like a normal sleeve cuff. Now, when you cut out the cuff, you want to make sure that the stretch is going across the cuff so that it will stretch around your arm. So to figure out the length that we need for our neckline, I'm going to draw a line where the seam allowance is on each shoulder seam. And then I'm going to place those lines on each other. That is where our pattern is going to meet. That's where our sew line is. So I'm then going to measure, set this on it to hold it in place. See, I've already moved it. Okay. I don't know if I like this. This might make a funny little indentation in the let's see, I'm just going to make this a gentler curve here. It's not super gentle, but better. Okay. Now I'm going to measure this. And I've got 31.5 inches. So I'm going to cut a strip 31.5 inches times 2. Now, if your fabric is not wide enough, you can cut 2 pieces 32 inches. That would give you enough, plus the seam allowance, and have a seam at your center back. So I want my neckband to be a little bit wide. So I'm going to cut my fabric strip 4.5 inches wide by 62.5 inches. 63 inches. Which means I will probably need to cut two pieces at 32 inches because my fabric is not that wide. And obviously my math is not that good. So I measured the front neckline and with the back neckline, and it was 31.5 inches. And I doubled that, it was 63. Okay, the first thing we're gonna do is sew the front to the back at the shoulder seams. So I have my left front, and I'm gonna pin it right sides together, starting at the shoulder seam to the back. Almost forgot my clear elastic. It is very important in the shoulders. Okay, now I've already pinned one side. Now I'm just pinning the other side so that we can sew down each side seam from the armpit, arm side to the hem. Set this aside and grab the sleeves. Okay. These are my cuffs. We'll do those after. So, I'm going to take the sleeves and put them right sides together, fold them in half right sides together, and sew down the seam, down the inside seam. Find the front. The front is a little narrower. So this is the front. I'm going to have a notch to mark my front. Do that for the other sleeve, and we'll sew those on, and then we'll come back and do the sleeve cuffs and neckband. All right, and we're gonna put this onto our sleeve. So I've pinned one sleeve, and I'll show you how to pin the other one. You find the quarter marks on your sleeve and on the cuff. Now stick this cuff inside the sleeve, lining up the seam. And the sweater knit wants to stick to itself, so it's tricky. There we go. Okay. Line up the seam. A quarter pins, clips. I will forever call them pins, even though I know they're clips. Okay. 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 Now, just sew these on. And there it is. All we have left is the neckband and hemming. Now, for my neckband, I have 2 pieces, so I want to sew them right sides together across the short ends. And I have the seam at the center back. squeaky scissors. I don't know if you can hear them. Okay. Flip these right sides out. And pin the raw edges together all the way down. I love this sweater knit. I think it's called Hachi. I can't remember where I got it right at this moment, but I'll try to link that for you. So I have finished hemming
Place the
my
sleeve
cardigan
right side out.
and I highly
And the
recommend this
inside
Heat and
out.
Bond Soft Stretch Fusible Web
And I'll pin the
adhesive.
shoulders.
It made hemming this slinky sweater knit a breeze. It was so easy and it's just wonderful. Okay, I have my cuffs. And we're going to, I'm gonna fold it in half. Right sides together.